God, I hope this works. If you could see the setup I was working with, if you could simply see the makeshift, jerry-rigged, fucking off-kilter just situation. I don't even want to move it. I'm going to try. For the sake of the... So that's where you are. Don't be weird about it. Don't be scared. Oh my God. You will not believe the freaking couple of days my family has had. I am in my pajamas fully, trying to decide what my next poem would be. That I was going to look and I was going to pick a different book. But I looked at my shelf and I said, Emily, it's going to have to be this book. That's not even what happened, because the book wasn't on my shelf. It was on my desk. I was really called to this poem this morning, and I love this book. Now, when you hear the name Frank O'Hara, what comes to mind? Whatever it is, that's correct. A New York poet. I'm not here... Listen, you want to know about Frank O'Hara? Google the guy. He was awesome. I think people might be more familiar with his book Lunch Poems, which is a very classic title. It's red with black letters and a white thing. But today we're reading from Frank O'Hara, Meditations on an Emergency. Published in... I got this book from... This is going to be a problem because I want to set it down. Production issues. It is what it is, but oh my freaking God. Okay. So, Frank O'Hara, Meditations on an Emergency, published by Grove Press. Second edition, 1967. So this is like 60s New York. Poets are throwing parties and doing gay stuff and drinking heavily and doing all kinds of things that poets do. And I just read this poem this morning and it really stuck with me. I think people hear Frank O'Hara, they think the Coke, like sharing a Coke with you, classic love poem. But I want to read this one, For Grace, After a Party. For Grace, After a Party. You do not always know what I am feeling. Last night, in the warm spring air, while I was blazing my tirade against someone who doesn't interest me, it was love for you that set me afire. And isn't it odd? For in rooms full of strangers, my most tender feelings writhe and bear the fruit of screaming. Put out your hand. Isn't there an ashtray suddenly there, beside the bed? And someone you love enters the room and says, wouldn't you like the eggs a little different today? And when they arrive, they are just plain scrambled eggs. And the warm weather is holding. Okay. I love poems. I love this poem. When I was in a workshop once, a teacher suggested to me that in a poem, like how Frank O'Hara does, when I reference someone, to give them a name. Give them a name, like when you mention like a person in a poem, name them. Like it can be the friend, like your friend's name. It can be just like name them, because it goes back to the idea of like the more details and the more specifics a poem has, the more grounded it feels and the more connected to an emotional experience I think the reader will have. But let's go through the poem. I like this poem. I don't know. It just feels like it's a beautiful day. It's a Friday when I'm recording this. And this was the first when I picked up this book off the shelf, I was flipping through it, and I've read this book before, and you can see that I've marked this poem. So obviously I have already liked this poem in the past. But let's go through it. Let's talk about it. So for Grace after a party. So again with the names, Grace. He's writing to a friend, Grace. Clearly a friend he loves. I like this idea. Frank O'Hara does this idea of like love poems to friends. You can write a love poem to anything. It doesn't have to be a person. It doesn't have to be romantic. But like, what if it is? And what if it's not? Yeah. So to me, this is a love poem to this friend Grace after a party. And in my head, I'm imagining him and Grace threw a party. Grace is pissed for some reason. You know how after a party when you're mad at your roommates, you're like annoyed for some reason. I'm guessing he did something drunk and gay that pissed her off, and now he's writing her this poem being like, I'm sorry, I love you, come on. So for Grace after a party. You do not always know what I am feeling. Okay, see? Classic friend argument. You don't always know what I'm feeling. You do not always know what I am feeling, but it's also, it can be read that way, but it can also be read like, you don't always know how I feel about something. You can't, like, it's fine. You don't always have to know what I'm feeling about things, and you don't always know, and you can't assume, and so we're starting there. You do not always know what I am feeling. Last night, in the warm spring air, while I was blazing my tirade against someone who doesn't interest me, so I'm imagining, you don't always know what I'm thinking. Last night, and he was standing outside. I'm imagining yelling at someone or having a very spirited conversation with someone outside, someone who doesn't interest him, someone who is just like, I do this. You get into a heated debate with someone you don't like. This is not a person that's interesting to me, but I'm still here, and I'm still blazing a tirade, and I'm still out here. It was love for you that set me afire. And isn't it odd? Okay, interesting. So, in the warm spring air, so while I was outside last night, while I was blazing my tirade against someone who doesn't interest me, it was my love for you, Grace, that got me this heated, that got me to this point where I was blazing a tirade. And isn't it odd? For in rooms full of strangers, my most tender feelings writhe and bear the fruit of screaming. My most tender feelings rise and bear the fruit of screaming. So screaming is the fruit, and the fruit is born from these tender feelings. And so it was his love for his friend Grace that caused him to be yelling at someone. So I think maybe someone was talking shit about his friend, and he kind of like went, I don't know. That's kind of that. See, this is how I'm reading it now. Writhe and bear the fruit of screaming. But I like this. This is what's beautiful about poetry, because it's not about relaying that he was pissed. It's about describing a moment and conveying a feeling. And the feeling is that I was feeling my emotions and my tenderness and my love for you so fully that I was overcome with passion. And that's because my heart is so tender towards you. He must have really pissed her off. Put out your hand. Isn't there an ashtray suddenly there? So I read this and I think, put out your hand to like ash a cigarette. Like when you put out your hand to ash a cigarette, don't I always put the ashtray underneath? Don't I always catch your ashes? Aren't I always there for you? And the connection of the fire, the blazing, the tirade, and now here we have an ashtray. When you hold out your hand, isn't there an ashtray there? But he doesn't need to say cigarette. But we already have the images of fire, of burning. It's already like this, the foundation's already kind of been set. So by the time he gets to when you hold out your hand, we as the reader kind of already have this image in our heads without him even needing to say it. Ugh, my God. So, okay. It was love for you that set me afire, and isn't it odd? For in rooms full of strangers my most tender feelings writhe and bear the fruit of screaming, put out your hand. Isn't there an ashtray suddenly there? Beside the bed, okay, beside the bed, and someone you love enters the room beside the bed. So there's an ashtray there. So not even that. And now we've jumped to beside the bed. You're in bed and I put the ashtray there for you, bitch. So, and this is after the party, so we can assume she's in bed. This is after the fact. So we were in the party, now we're after the party. Beside the bed, and someone you love, I feel like that's him being like, and someone you love, me, enters the room and says, wouldn't you like the eggs a little different today? But it doesn't even have to be that. Just this idea, right? This simple observation, this simple idea, this simple thing. Someone you love enters the room and says, wouldn't you like the eggs a little different today? And I'm thinking now what I said before about the names, about specifying names in poems, but this is an instance. This is the thing about poetry, is that everything is true and not true at the same time. Two things can be true at the same time all the time. That's the point of poetry. I think to me that's like the art of it. That's a huge part of it. That's why people like it. That's why I like it, is because there's so many different ways to read and interpret and analyze. But someone you love enters the room and says, wouldn't you like the eggs a little different today? I feel like a line like that, you say it, and the someone you love, it can be a parent, a sibling, a roommate, a friend, a lover. It can be so many things, but the act of feeding you, of caring for you, of asking how you want your eggs. And then in the very next line, because notice how, would you like the eggs a little different today? And then when they arrive, they're just plain scrambled eggs. But they're still eggs. It's still breakfast. It's still feeding and being fed and being cared for and being loved. And I'm sorry I pissed you off at the party last night. Do you want your eggs a little different today? Really, all I can do is scrambled, but I'm going to ask you anyway because I love you. And when they arrive, they are just plain scrambled eggs, and the warm weather is holding. Someone you love enters the room, says, wouldn't you like the eggs a little different today? They're asking you what you want. Someone is there, like, to, feed you, care for you. It wouldn't be the same if... The poem wouldn't have the same impact if there was an answer to the question, if Grace, right, had answered like, oh, I'll have them poached. Like, that's not the point of the poem. And that's not what that would be cut. That's something that you would cut out of the poem, because it's not the emotional truth. It's not the emotional root. It's not the through line running through the poem. The through line running through the poem is the speaker's love for Grace, because this poem is for Grace after the party. And I'm making eggs for you because I know that you're mad, but I don't know why. Here's the thing. Why am I reading this as an apology mostly? I'm reading this as an apology of like, I'm really reading into this, projecting my own personal experience as a roommate apologizing to another roommate. But I'm also thinking of this because I know that Frank O'Hara's gay. So it really is like, this to me it's a love poem. It's a declaration, but I think because for what to me is clearly a dear friend, someone he loves very much. And I just like, that's just like that's the tone. This is why tone is so important in poetry, because the tone it strikes with you is how you're going to read the entire poem. Because I'm reading this as like a tongue-in-cheek apology love poem, like, because I've had experiences like this with my friends, like of both ways. And it's just, I think, part of life. But the point isn't that she got the eggs the way she wanted. The point is that she got eggs. And the warm weather's holding. You can be pissed at me, but I'm still going to be here. It's still going to be plain scrambled eggs, but it's a beautiful day outside. And there's no storm. The warm weather, it's not like the sun disappeared behind the clouds and like that, because that would indicate something else. That would indicate that something had changed, that there was now something shady over their relationship. But the warm weather is holding. And that's why to me this is a poem about relationships holding, and the bonds between people, and the bonds between the speaker and Grace. And maybe even so, Grace is a great name for a poem, because it could be a name for a person, but it can also be like for grace, like literally like grace, like having grace, being graceful, having grace after you've embarrassed yourself at a party, you know. There's just something to that. And I really love the simple beauty, the simple love, this is what I like about Frank O'Hara in general, is because he really can cut to the heart of an experience, cut to the emotional heart of an experience by just stating a simple fact, or stating things as if they are simple fact. It's truly like his poetry to me is always like, it is just, he is making observations just all the time. And there's a bonus poem. There's a really short poem in here that I just love. And I think about it every fall. It's this poem. It's in French. Les étiquettes jaunes. I know it was wrong. I did it anyway. I picked up a leaf today from the sidewalk. This seems childish. Leaf, you are so big. How can you change your color, then just fall? As if there were no such thing as integrity. You are too relaxed to answer me. I am too frightened to insist. Leaf, don't be so neurotic. Like the small chameleon. I love, this is just like I just am obsessed with this poem. This is truly like, he was walking down the street and a big ass leaf just fell from the tree, and he was like, that to me is a poem. And he captures so much, because you first read, right, silly little poem. I think that this would make an excellent children's book. Adapting poetry into children's books. Penguin Random House. Give me a fucking ring, why don't you? Picked up a leaf today from the sidewalk. This seems childish, right? It seems like that's what kids do. Kids pick up leaves and they look at them and they go, whoa, how big is this leaf? And go, leaf, you are so big. But why not? Because yeah, leaves are big. Why can't we say it? How can you change your color then just fall? Change your color and then you're just going to fall about it? What? As if there were no such thing as integrity. You are too relaxed to answer me. I'm too frightened. So this is where, and see, this is how a simple word choice changes the tone of a poem. I am too frightened to insist. Why is he frightened? Why is he frightened? Leaf, don't be neurotic like the small chameleon. Chameleons change colors. So, okay. Clear, to me, a clear through line in the imagery. Leaves change colors, chameleons change colors to blend into their surroundings for their safety, to protect them from predators. Now, what Are leaves protecting themselves from predators? Humans, perhaps? No. What could it be? I don't know. Fall. Death. Who's to say? You are too relaxed. I am too frightened. Leaf, don't be neurotic. And it's in this moment where, is he talking to the leaf? Or is he talking to himself? Or is the leaf talking to him and to the leaves? We're leaves. That's not up to me. To me, Frank O'Hara poems feel like photographs in the way they he captures moments and can kind of go dig into a single moment, a single snapshot, and dig into it and find the emotional heart of just a single interaction, a single moment, a conversation. I really do believe that he wrote this poem after a party, after he pissed his friend Grace off and just fucking gave with her eggs, just was I wrote this for you. Please stop being mad at me. Or maybe it was his you need to get the fuck over it because we're friends. Stop. How do you want your eggs? Bitch, you're getting scrambled. I don't care. The weather's nice. Let's go outside. Put your pants on. And I mean, it's beautiful in New York today. The warm weather's holding. And sometimes plain old scrambled eggs really hit the spot. So there's that. I think I feel good about that for today. So that was Frank for Grace after a party. Go make some scrambled eggs if you can. Love you.